Hi, I am Francesca Donner with the Wall Street Journal, and I'm here with Peter Cappelli of the Wharton Business School, and he is here today to talk about jobs, the economy, and his new book, Why Good People Can't Get Jobs. So Peter, we seem to have a real hiring problem out there. There are a lot of companies out there that claim there aren't candidates for jobs. People are claiming that they can't land the jobs that they need to land. What's going on?
Seems to be a very big disconnect on this topic. I'd say we hear more from the employers who have a bigger megaphone than the individuals have. But I'd say the experience the employers have is pretty straightforward. They're saying we're not hiring as many or as quickly or as easily as we expected. Their self-diagnosis of the problem is that there's something wrong with the candidates. And the question is whether that's right. And when you look at it closely, it doesn't appear to be right. It appears that what has happened is, in the past generation, employers have changed their practices quite a lot. It used to be they would hire people in, train and develop them for particular jobs. And now their behavior and their interest is to hire people that they can plug and play, right? So they're interested in people who can immediately do a job without any training, of course, but also without any ramp-up time, without any onboarding, without any time to get used to the company or the jobs. So right away they want them to be able to start contributing. And the only way you can do that is if you've already done the job someplace else. So for example, we see employers saying they don't want to hire anybody who is not currently employed. If you're unemployed, forget it. We don't want to hire anybody unless you are working for a company like us and in a job very much like ours. And often now they're adding on requirements because we're trying to consolidate positions, so we want you to do this job and this job. So the requirements are growing, and they end up with basically no one who could possibly do the jobs that they're looking for.
Seems like a real lack of imagination on the part of employers, an inability to think outside the box and see people's qualities for what they really are. Would you agree with that?
I think that's right, and I think in fairness to the employers, they've got a problem that we might not always recognize as a problem, and that is they're overwhelmed by applicants. Because there are 12.7 million unemployed and another 2.4 million who want to have a job and have given up looking in various ways. There's a lot of people sending in applications, and they've got to screen them all. And at the same time, the companies have gutted a lot of their administrative functions, particularly in human resources. So they automate everything. And the automation means you fill out an application online or you send in a resume online, and then we screen it with software initially. And it's hard to get that software right. And as a result, a lot of people who, if you talk to them, you'd realize they really could do the job, just can't get through that automated process.
So maybe it's a lack of imagination on the part of the software. Is that fair to say?
Well, I'd say the software people, the sort of people who write the software, say the software is capable of doing a lot more than it's typically used to do. And so part of the problem is to get the software to do what you want it to do also requires a fair amount of investment in the time of each employer to do it.
So how can we get the software to recognize the different nuances in candidates? Because clearly someone on paper isn't necessarily the same as that person who might be sitting in the chair opposite you.
Right. So I'd say that there are maybe three problems. The first problem is employers have to recognize or ask critical questions about whether the requirements they're expecting in the job are really necessary. And one of the factors that drives that is to ask yourself, how much is it costing us to keep the position vacant? Right? In some companies, I think frankly, they think it's saving them money if they don't fill vacancies. And that's a quirk of the internal accounting systems. It's because they're not very good or not very complete. And so if you think it's saving you money to keep a vacant position open, then you might as well be picky, and you might as well pile on the kind of requirements that you could only meet if you were a Nobel Prize winner or something. So we have to get past that. Do we have realistic requirements? Do we have realistic expectations on pay? So in a lot of the automated software, the first question you ask is, what rate of pay are you looking for? and if you guess higher than the company wants to pay, we throw your application out, and it looks like no one can do the job. Then after that, we can start worrying about the software itself. And I think the best solution there is to try to get people to screen themselves out before they bother to apply. To be able to say to them on the website or something, if you don't have these requirements, if you don't have this experience, there's really no reason to apply at all. It's not illegal to do that as long as you don't say things which are blatantly discriminatory. I think one of the things that applicants are very upset about is the sense that there's no response from the software, right? They just never know what happened to their application, and they think because they never hear anything back that maybe it never got through, so they apply again and again.
Well, what about an automated email response? Does that make a difference, or is that just frustrating?
Apparently it does. When you talk to applicants, they say typically they never hear a thing back.
But an automated email is so easy. Why not just
do it?
Set it up?
Right, why not set it up? An automated email that would say, I'm sorry, we're not hiring you, or we got your application but you don't meet our needs, something like that.
Let's talk about the talent shortage, because I feel like this is the label that's given to this problem, but it doesn't really sound like a terribly accurate label.
Right. No, it's not an accurate label. It's the self-diagnosis that employers are applying to the problem. They're saying, I'm trying to hire, I can't do it, I can't find what I want at the price I'm willing to pay, therefore there's something wrong with the applicant pool. And the story you usually hear about that is that it's the schools. The problem is the schools are not turning out the right kind of people, or they're not turning out the people with the right attributes, level of performance. When you look at surveys of hiring managers, the people who are actually doing the hiring, they never say that. If you look, when you ask them, what is it that's difficult to find, what's in short supply, academic skills are way down the list. They'd be like 20th on the list of things they're looking for. The things they want are work experience, right? So there's no shortage of people who have ability. That's absolutely clear. There's no shortage of people who have the right backgrounds in terms of academic issues, with very few exceptions. The issue is really all about work experience, because nobody wants to train.
Peter Cappelli, thank you so much for your time. For the Wall Street Journal, I am Francesca Donner.